Hi, this is Vicki. This is my Good Book Talk video for LIS 534. Here we go. Hi, everybody. We have come to the end of another school year. Yay! And we're all ready for some summer adventures, I'm sure. I'm sure you all have lots of plans. I know I do, and I can't wait to do some of them. But did you know you could also find some adventures at your public library? They come in books, like this one. There are 3 series of books that I want to tell you about that all have lots of adventure titles. The first one is Classic Starts, and I like this series because at the end of it, it has all the titles in the series listed. There are lots of them. Then there is the Calico Illustrated series. And then there is the Great Illustrated Classics. So I'm going to talk about a book from each one of these series that I hope you will find enjoyable. First comes The Swiss Family Robinson, which I admit is one of my all-time favorite stories. I can read this book and reread this book every day. I mean, look at that treehouse. Who wouldn't want to live in that treehouse? Really. It is really cool. It's a story about a family who was on their way to start a new colony in a new world, and they get shipwrecked very close to an island. It's supposed to take place in about the Indian Ocean area. And there are lots of provisions on the boat because they were going to start a new colony, but those provisions are only going to last for so long. And then they have to start their own life. So we have here pictures, really cool pictures. Look at how they got all the animals to shore. Pretty ingenious. I like that. And you can also learn about some really cool animals. I'm going to read you an excerpt here. On our way back to our treehouse, we suddenly spotted a giant beast leaping through the woods. Ernest shot at it and knocked it down. As we ran to get a closer look at the animal, we saw that it was as big as a sheep, with a head like a mouse, a tiger's tail, and ears like a rabbit. We looked at it for a long time, amazed by its appearance, until suddenly I clapped my hands. Now, if you want to know what kind of animal that is, you're going to need to read the book. You're also going to need to read the book to find out how to capture, tame, and ride an ostrich and make boots out of rubber that you got from a tree. So, this is a really fun book to read while you're sitting in a tree or under a tree. The next book is The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Now, with this book, you have to remember that it takes place in the 1840s. This is before the Civil War. So there is slavery involved in this, and there are some issues and some topics that we know today are not the best way to live, but it's still a lot of fun. Tom is really clever and gets others to do all sorts of things and even gets them to do his chores for them. An example of that Tom has to whitewash a fence, which is like painting a fence. The fence is 9 feet high and 30 feet long, so it's going to take a long time. Along comes this guy, Ben. Really? Asked Ben. Oh, Tom, you just have to let me whitewash the fence for you. I'd let you if it were me. Tom shook his head. Aunt Polly wouldn't let Jim or Sid do it. If anything happened to it, aw, shucks, I'll be careful. Let me try, begged Ben. I'll give you the core of my apple. I'll give you all of my apple. Tom gave up his brush with a twinkle in his eye. As he sat and munched on the apple, Tom prepared to trick more kids. So before that passage, Tom had worked out how to trick Ben to whitewash the fence, and he knew others would be coming along the street, and he'd trick them. And he would sit and eat their apples and play with their toys while they did his work. That cover looks pretty interesting too. I wonder what they're up to there. Tom also leads the boys into living like pirates on Jackson Island, and then he learns that the townspeople think they're all dead, and they surprise them at their own funeral. Very funny scene. And towards the end of the book, they do find some real buried treasure. Lots of fun things in here, but again, like I said, one of the characters is a slave, and there are some issues that happened a long time ago in our history, and this is important to remember when you're reading this book. The last book is the Great Illustrated Classics, King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. Now, this book is a little higher level reading. Some of the words are a little harder, and there are some places named in the book that we're not familiar with because this takes place in the Middle Ages. But there are illustrations on every other page to help you understand the story. And if you don't want to read this book in this series, it is in this series, which is a little easier to understand. So, King Arthur pulls a sword out of a stone and puts it back in as if it were butter. And then he meets a lady in a lake who gives him the most powerful and coveted and most famous sword in the world, Excalibur. Okay. These are 3 really adventurous stories. And like I said, there are lots of others. I hope you have a great time reading these 3 adventures and have a wonderful summer.